is Netanyahu doing? Sick stuff, right? Do you not see what's going on around? Yeah, but it won't affect me. It's the same narrative. What are you bringing me to the gas chamber for? I'm not Jewish. I'm German. Truth, like good and bad in the world? No go. Don't be a hypocrite. Where are you? Not where is God. Welcome back to the latest episode of Tech to Tanks, where we talk about Israel, geopolitics, the United States, tech, and everything in between. You know, in every hour, literally every 5 minutes, I turn my phone off, I turn it back on, the Middle East has changed. Bibi was invited to the White House, strangely, because it was a very urgent trip. Very, very strange interaction there. I mean, first of all, they canceled the press conference. I don't remember such a thing happening. Netanyahu was on the way to that White House, and Trump announced that the press conference that was supposed to follow their meeting is canceled. Very strange. But so many things are on the table right now. We got the tariffs, which, let's talk about that for a second. Obviously, Trump is pulling the Band-Aid off, and we can debate. We saw the markets crash literally across the world, trillions of dollars lost because of Trump's tariffs. He'll say he's pulling the Band-Aid off, or maybe performing open heart surgery, because the United States have been taken advantage of for the past, few decades. And so now he's kind of equaling the playing field. The other side will say, what the hell are you doing? Why are you creating a trade war? Truth be told, full disclosure, I don't know anything about tariffs. I mean, I'm following the news. To me, it seems like a little bit of a harsh move on Trump's part, but I'm definitely not a subject matter expert, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut on that. Not going to lie, though, it hurts my savings. Anyway, so they were talking about tariffs. They were talking about Iran. They were talking about the war, obviously. There's discussion of a new Egyptian offer to bring a ceasefire. I think it was 70 days for 8 hostages or something along those lines. Israel basically rejected it immediately, saying that the terms are impossible. But I want to talk about Iran. What is going on with Iran and Israel? What is the deal? Why do they hate us so much? What's going to be with their nuclear program? Are we going to attack it? Is there going to be a diplomatic solution? It's a lot to talk about. But first of all, I have to point out the irony of us coming full circle, right? We know that in every generation there's anti-Semitism. It's kind of built into the DNA of the universe. We get it. Ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, Soviet, Nazi. The list is long, obviously. But we've come full circle. Right? Now the Persians, right? We know the story of Purim. It's the Persians. And now we're come full circle and Iran hates us again. But first of all, to be, very precise, because every time I say what I just said, that Iran hates us, I get killed on the internet, and rightfully so. It's not Iran. It's the evil Iranian regime. The people of Iran love Israel. That's a fact. So the evil regime of Iran has basically, set their goals, their life mission on bringing down 2 countries. The small Satan and the big Satan. The small Satan being the state of Israel, the only Jewish state in the world. The big Satan being the United States of America. They're not ashamed. They don't hide it. They speak clearly and loudly, much like the different proxies that they fund, of course, including Hamas, that states clearly, we're going to carry out October 7th over and over and over again. Open parentheses. The next thing they say is that the Zionists are lying about October 7th. We've talked about this. Tons of contradictions. Putting that aside for right now. So basically, Iran, or the Iranian regime, has set their goals on destroying Israel, erasing Israel from the map. They use proxies like Hezbollah, like Hamas, like the Houthis. Soon will be, rest in peace, the Houthis. Syria. And, we've talked about this. In the beginning of the war, many of us, myself included, were wondering, what is Netanyahu doing? Does he have any strategy? Is this just like an emotional war? They hurt us so badly, so we're going to hurt them? Or was there a strategy? Got to be honest, for the first 6 months of the war, I wasn't sure if he had a strategy, but one day it kind of fell, kind of like, oh, I know what he's doing. And what he's doing is he's dominoing it. He's knocking off proxy by proxy. And to me, that's the right strategy. So the head of the snake is, of course, Iran. And the elephant in the closet is, of course, the Iranian nuclear program. So again, they don't hide it. They're working very hard, tirelessly for a very long time to basically make their Iranian program operational. And I don't think anyone has any doubts what will happen next. So it's been clear, it's been Bibi's mission for as long as I can remember to ensure that Iran does not get the bomb. But unfortunately, our previous administration, Biden, pulled out of the Iranian deal, started to fund Iran again. I can't even get into the mindset. But putting that aside, Trump is right now going strong at Iran with a little bit of an asterisk here, which is, I think it's clear that Israel wants to attack Iran with the help of the United States. The United States is sending over tons of, planes and ships and defensive aerial systems. Like, it's pretty clear that we're getting ready. But Trump, perhaps naively, thinks that we can once again speak to Iran and create a diplomatic solution. I don't know what he's thinking. Perhaps, I want to hope that he realizes this is his last resort, and that when, and I don't say if, but when those talks fail, full out, like military operation to take out Iran's nuclear program. And it's important to mention, by the way, something that not many people realize. The night that Israel attacked Iran, one of the nights, but the big attack, I woke up and everyone's like, oh my God, Iran attacked Israel and shot 200 ballistic missiles, and all Israel did was this. It's such a lame response. I don't know what people were talking about, because Israel took out completely Iran's aerial defense systems. They are now naked and vulnerable, and we didn't do that for fun. We did that to prepare for the next stage, and the next stage is attacking Iran and taking out their nuclear program. But for now, Bibi and Trump discussed this at the White House, and apparently, strangely, America has direct talks with Iran. Of course, Iran denies this and says that it's not direct talks and it's being done through a mediator. Whatever it is, there's going to be discussions between the United States of America and Iran regarding their nuclear program. And if I had to guess or predict, I think those talks are going to fail, because Iran's not giving up on their nuclear ambitions and America's not going to accept that they have the bomb. So things are about to get pretty interesting. But again, what is the hatred? Why do they hate us so much? And we've talked about this, and I think that the question is a broader question of anti-Semitism in general. What is it about anti-Semitism? Why do, in every generation, why do these empires hate us so much? What have the Jews done to the world other than bring good, right? Cancer research, who leads the world? Israel, right? First on scene where there's a natural disaster, Israel. It's unbelievable. We talked about Israeli tech. I mean, you can't live a day in the modern world without Israeli tech. Try unlocking your iPhone. When you unlock your iPhone, Face ID. Who developed Face ID? PrimeSense, an Israeli company that Apple acquired, right? You want to water your garden, drip irrigation? Forget it. Developed in the Technion in Haifa, right? You want to take a picture with your phone? Dual lens technology, developed by an Israeli. The list just goes on. The pill cam, right? Cancer research, Intel, based in Jerusalem, Microsoft Teams, the AI built in Herzliya. The list is very, very long. So why do they hate us? And I gotta give a shout out to a good friend of mine named Larry Deverett, who told me something a long time ago that deeply resonated. But before I tell you what he said, it's important for me to emphasize, there are some questions that I've asked myself that I struggled with my entire life. And I mean that, my entire life since I'm a little kid. One of them is, why didn't the German Jews leave, right? When Hitler was just speaking and it was just rhetoric, maybe they could convince themselves that, it won't go anywhere. But when the Nuremberg laws were legislated, why didn't my grandmother leave? And unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to ask her that question. That's something I struggled with. And unfortunately, sadly, tragically, I now understand the answer. Look at my friends in the States. Penn Station was taken over by actual Islamists, and my friends are still staying there thinking it won't affect them. Topic for another time. So why do they hate us? And the answer, I think is a very interesting one. I'm not saying that this is the answer. It's an answer that resonated with me. And this is, if you look at history, the script keeps repeating itself. People say history repeats itself. If people know that history repeats itself, why don't you open a history book to know what's about to happen? It's the same script. And here's the script. You have an empire. Again, ancient Egyptian, we're about to celebrate Passover, Roman Empire, all of them. And that empire begins to grow. And it grows and grows and grows until it achieves world domination, unparalleled power and influence. The first thing that it does, and again, it's across all empires, the first thing that it does is it throws morality out the window, right? You put people to fight to the death in the Colosseum for my entertainment, the emperor, right? I mean, sick stuff, right? Not going to get into the discussion about Western civilization today and the lack of morality, because that's a little bit controversial for now. But morality's gone out the window, right? The moral compass of Western civilization has disintegrated, and I'm being kind. So what happens is this empire doesn't want morality. It doesn't want morality shoved down its throat. Now, again, asterisk, what I'm about to say might sound like I'm being a supremacist. I'm not, and I'll explain why afterwards. But when an empire decides they don't want morality, they say, well, where did this morality come from? Like, where does the world know that it's immoral to murder? Because in ancient times, it wasn't immoral to murder. So where does the world know that it's immoral to murder? This isn't a theological discussion. This is a historical discussion. Where did the world know that it is immoral to murder? The answer is the Bible. This is an objective historical fact, okay? They know it from the Bible. The Bible brought morality to the world, not from a supremacist perspective. But the bottom line is the Jewish tradition focuses heavily on the family unit and on education. And there's a reason that we're here and all those empires are gone. So this empire says, okay, we don't want morality. We got to come after the source of morality. Now, they can't come after the source of morality. Can't kill God. So what do? As my friend Larry Deverett says, they kill FedEx. They don't get their package, right? They come after the messenger. They say, the Jews have brought morality to the world. We need this morality thing out of our world. They come after the messenger, the Jews. Now, what happens next is, again, tragic. The Jews And I use that word not in a derogatory way. There are two words that people call me, our enemies call me in like a derogatory way. And I'm like, hell's yeah. They're like, you Jew. I'm like, yeah, I'm proud. You Zionist. Absolutely. Like, it's just funny how they use it as a curse. But the Jews, what they do is they come to this empire. Again, Egyptian. Let's just take Egyptian because we're about to celebrate Passover. People don't realize this. After the 10 plagues, after everything that God did for the Jews, the Israelites, they weren't Jews yet, to say, get out of Egypt. You were enslaved for 210 years. Go to the land of Israel. 80% stayed back. 80%. 20% of the Israelites left. I mean, it's mind-boggling. So it's the same script. They're like, what did these people tell themselves? After 210 years of back-breaking slavery, what did those 80% of the Israelites tell themselves? Why did they stay back? It's obvious. They said to themselves, I'm Egyptian. I was born here in Egypt. My parents were born. I'm Egyptian. Land of milk and honey. I'm going to stay here where I'm comfortable. And you're like, but you're a slave. Yeah, it's okay. It won't affect me. I have a roof over my head. It's like, I speak to my friends in the States. I'm like, do you not see what's going on around? Yeah, but it won't affect me. It's the same narrative. So this, the Jews come to this empire and say, hey, empire, hey, Romans, hey, Greeks, hey, we're just like you. We're fully assimilated Germans. What are you bringing me to the gas chamber for? I'm not Jewish. I'm German, right? And then our hosts have to say, no, Jews, you're not just like us. We've developed a tool that shows you you're not just like us. It's called anti-Semitism, right? And then in a counterintuitive way, there is a direct correlation between assimilation and anti-Semitism. Why is that counterintuitive? You would think it would be an inverse correlation, right? If I come to someone and say, I'm just like you, then they should not hate me because I'm just like them. But not the case. When we put out our light, and again, not in a supremacist kind of way, the Jews have been a source of light in the world. When we put out our light, the Gentiles of the world, the empires of the world say, Jews, put your light back on. You're not just like us. And they remind us. And then, sadly, tragically, horribly, and I hope I'm wrong, the next stage after that is the empire falls. Now, I really hope Western civilization doesn't fall. But if it does, and we're not headed in a good trajectory, in a good direction, if it does, it's pretty clear who's going to replace Western civilization, and that is radical Islam. They're not ashamed. They're not embarrassed to say it. That's their ambitions, to take over the West. And they're doing a pretty good job. If you ask me why they're doing a good job, it's because in our world, in the West, in the, let's call it, for lack of a better term, the woke, society, religion, like Judeo-Christian values is like taboo, like truth, like good and bad in the world, no go. So we've gotten rid of religion. We've made it taboo. The radical Islamic world, embracing their heritage, not, obviously I don't agree with their heritage, but embracing their Quran, going all in on religion. And unfortunately, again, if history is any indication, they're going to win. Now, I want to believe, maybe I'm being naive, but I want to believe that at the very least, Trump will slow that process down. Will he reverse the trajectory? I hope and pray that he does. Not too optimistic, again, just based on history. So it's the same story. We have Iran, who is, again, the regime is the epitome of immoral, and they're coming after the messengers of morality. And the same friend that mentioned that to me mentioned something else to me, which again, is going to offend you. It sounds controversial, but I don't mean it in a controversial way, which is that the Jews are a lighthouse, right? We're the lighthouse on the sea, and the nations are navigating the sea, and we're like, hey, let's put out our light. We're just like you, the rest of the ships on the sea. And then the empires, the people of the world, the Gentiles say to the Jews, get your light back on. We're lost without your morality. So it's kind of like two sides of the coin. On the one hand, they don't want our morality, maybe on a conscious level, but on the other, on the subconscious level, like we need that morality, otherwise we crumble. And that's what's happening right now. So the bottom line is it's, hatred because of, again, the disintegration, the disappearance of morality. Everything's morally relative, right? It's like there's no good and bad. There's just different, right? Now, the truth is when it's dealing with non-controversial topics, someone wants to be called something, call them that, whatever. But when you teach a generation to not use critical thinking, the result is that when you have a war between good and evil, that person can no longer differentiate because you told them yesterday not to use critical thinking. And so now we're dealing with a war like no other in terms of good and evil, maybe since World War II. And the difference is in World War II, there was a consensus that the Nazis are bad. Today, there's the opposite of consensus, and people in their, normal people, moral people, intelligent people cannot recognize that Iran, the Iranian regime, and all of its proxies are just radical Islamists who want to take over the West. And by the way, the irony of it all is that these pro-Palestinian people are supporting these people in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria. They're supporting them, but they won't listen to them, right? These people, in Gaza have never said they want a two-state solution. Never. There's never been a Palestinian leader that says, I want to live alongside Israel. There's never been a Palestinian leader that says Israel has a right to exist. So what are you dictating to them what they want? You want to support the Palestinians? Listen to them. So are they a bunch of kids throwing a tantrum that don't have to be held accountable for their words? Or are they adults who deserve a state? If they're adults who deserve a state, listen to what they're saying. So the Iranian regime is just an extension of everything that's happening in the world right now. I want to believe, naively maybe, that diplomatic discussions will lead somewhere. I don't see the Iranian regime getting off their high horse because, again, radical Islam doesn't know the concept of surrender. Speaking of Passover, I mean, one of the things that I struggled with, many things, but one of the things that I struggled with is this concept of God hardening the heart of Pharaoh. What does that mean? What, Pharaoh didn't have free choice? And furthermore, if he didn't have free choice, how are we punishing him? If God made him, not let the Israelites go, then... So I never understood this concept, hardening the heart. What does that mean? But I look around today and I'm like, this is clearly God hardening the heart, both of the world. How do otherwise moral people not stand with Israel? But that aside, think about it. Pharaoh, standing in the middle of Egypt, surrounded by mass destruction, right? Buildings, rubble, people, kids, right? And you would think he'd be like, get out of here, Jews. Let my people go. Get out of here. But he didn't do that because his heart was hardened. Does that remind you of something? Hamas in Gaza today. Look around. Mass destruction. You would think they would say, let my people go. Get the hell out of here, hostages. But they don't. Because radical Islam doesn't know the concept of surrender. So I don't see the Iranian regime getting off their high horse. I don't see them giving up on their nuclear ambitions. Sadly, what happens next is, both America and Israel attack. And not to sound too alarmist, but it won't end well. Russia has made that clear. China has made that clear. Unfortunately, assuming we're not already in a world war, which is a discussion in and of itself, considering the fact that basically every single country in the world is involved in this war in some way or another, diplomatically, politically, militarily, some way. Putting that aside, if and when Israel and America attack Iran, it probably won't end well. Crazier things have happened. Maybe Iran will, pull back and say, all right, let's go back to the negotiating table. I don't know. But if you'd ask me, I don't think this is going to end well. Time will tell. Things are going crazy right now. Things are changing from minute to minute. I think I've mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. The Torah says the words, Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged Ahar, the Jews, the Israelites parked by the nation. But the word Vayichan is they parked in singular. It doesn't say Vayachnu, they parked. It says he parked, Vayichan. Obvious question. There were 600,000 men. Why are we speaking in singular? So Rashi, the commentator on the Torah, says something interesting. Famously, he says, they were like one man with one heart. Ki ish echad belev echad, one man with one heart. Someone pointed out something to me that, honestly, I had to pull over to the side of the road. I was shaking from just so beautiful. Kfir, Ariel, Yarden, Shiri, the Bibas family. The Bibas family reunited Israel and the Jewish people. We need to go back to that. We need to stop the hatred because our enemies know full well what our division does, and it brings us to a place of weakness, and that's when they attack. We know this. It's documented. We need to reunite. We need to recognize that we have a joint enemy, radical Islam, and the Western world has to wake up and recognize the problem, because before you even acknowledge that there's a problem, how are you going to solve it? Time will tell. Things are about to get interesting. What happens if, right? Obviously, we hope this doesn't happen. If radical Islam does indeed take over the West, what happens next, right? Do they kill each other? Passover's coming up, and I got to share something that my dad says to me every year, and it's a beautiful thing. We say the prayer of the Hisha Amda. This is what stood for the Jews in every generation, how we survived, and it says something very interesting. And it's counterintuitive. It's kind of illogical. It says, our blessing over the generations is Shelo echad bilvad amad aleinu l'chalotenu. It's never been one enemy. It's never been one enemy that they all join together and they attack the Jews. How is that a blessing, right? And my dad always says it's a blessing because throughout the generations, you look at our enemies, instead of joining forces against Israel, they fight internally. We see this across the board. Iraq, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, it's across the board. And instead of joining forces, God forbid, against Israel, they always fight each other. So there's no question in anybody's mind, anybody who understands anything about the Islamic world, there's no question whatsoever that if, hypothetically, such a horrible scenario would take place, that they would take over the West, they'd kill each other, like that. Because, there's the two different, there's the Shi'i and the Sunnites, right? There's two different types of Muslims. They're at each other's throats. It's really a struggle for power, right? And so if they would somehow accomplish their mission of annihilating the West, they'll annihilate each other like that. So the next question is, it's pretty clear that the diplomatic discussions with Iran will not lead anywhere. And I would imagine that a military operation is inevitable. So how does that go down, right? Who attacks first? I think Israel is going to attack first. I think Israel, with all due respect to the United States Army, I think Israel's Air Force is maybe even, I would say, underappreciated. And I think that Israel has the military capabilities to take out the entire Iranian nuclear program. I think what we did with Nasrallah, people don't realize this. I mean, this is a whole discussion in of itself, right? We hear about these assassinations. Israel took out this leader, Israel took out that leader. I think we just like, okay, we read that, we move on to the next thing. Just like think about that for 1 second, right? Nasrallah. Nasrallah is probably, he was literally the most protected person maybe in the world, right? Nobody knew where he was, right? He wouldn't tell anyone because he understood that people are giving Israel intel. So there were probably 2 people in Lebanon who knew where Nasrallah was. Somehow Israel took him out. And how did Israel take him out? The guy was in bunkers, miles deep. Who knows where he was? And somehow we took him out. So Israel has incredible capabilities that we maybe sometimes we don't appreciate. And it's underrated, I believe, Israel's Air Force. So I think Israel will attack first, and I think America will support that operation. Again, to what extent, what America will do, I don't know. I think it's clear that America will partner with Israel on this. But if you'd ask me, I think Israel is going to be the primary attacker, and Israel's going to do the bulk of the work with American support and American weapons, important to mention. Okay, so there's a little bit of a theological question here from the audience, which is, okay, so, God and the Jewish people have this covenant, and that's why the Jews have been a light unto the nations. Does God want to maybe pass on the torch? Does God expect the Jews to pass that torch on to, say, Christianity or someone else? Obviously, I don't have the answer to that question. I can't tell you God's intentions. I don't understand God by definition. Again, this is theological, but that's not, as we say, that's not a bug that we don't understand God. That's a feature. We're not supposed to understand God, because if you understand God, then everyone would be religious. Everyone would believe in God. The point is, God gives us free choice and says, you have to achieve faith in me. I'm not giving it to you on a silver platter. So the fact that, we can't understand God mentally, cognitively in a normal is, again, not a bug, but a feature. So, what happens next is Israel, the Jewish people, supposed to pass the torch on to someone else. My fundamental faith and belief in Judaism as a system says otherwise, says not. I believe we are the chosen people. And what does that mean, we are the chosen people? That doesn't mean we're better than anyone else. My DNA is the same as your DNA. It just means that our value system, aka the Torah, and its emphasis on things that are actually important, despite the fact that the West, not only ignores those things, but makes them taboo. Sorry, I have to say, how far have we gone in the West in terms of morality? How immoral have we become? I think there's one little instance that really gives a clear picture of how far we've come in terms of immorality. And that is the fact that in the West, specifically in the woke culture, there is an actual term, for pedophiles. Minor attracted individuals. What does it mean when you give someone something a term? You're legitimizing it. And it's like, everything is, oh yeah, it's a mental illness. No, the person is a monster. He's evil and he's a monster and he should be put to death. But no, everything's different. There's no good and bad. It's just, we're different. Moral relativism. It's crazy. And so I think the Jewish people have been a source of light and morality in the world. And, obviously as an observant Jew, I believe that is something that is for eternity, that the Jewish people are the chosen people. And as long as we continue to do our part, which is quite a big assumption, because unfortunately, sadly, most Jews around the world aren't doing their part, again, in my opinion. As long as we continue to do our part, we will remain the chosen people, but we have to step up. If we don't step up, then nothing makes us different than anyone else. And again, sadly, so many Jews today are not stepping up. So we need to change that. We need to focus on ourselves. What God intends for the torch, I can only say what I believe. It's hard for me to know, but we got to keep doing what we're doing. And again, when I speak to people who are not necessarily observant, who don't believe, in Judaism, I say to them, listen, forget, the world to come, forget theology. The Jewish system, as a societal system, is an incredible, look, we've survived when everybody else hasn't. And so even if you don't want to believe in Judaism as a religion, believe in Judaism as a societal system, something that preserves the Jewish people through thousands of years of turmoil, of persecution, of massive empires that disappear. We're still here. So there's only 2 options. Either you believe in God and say we're here because of God, or you believe in Judaism and you say we're here because of Judaism. To not believe in either one of those, again, in my opinion, is just idiocy. It's delivered. We see the results. So what will happen in the future in terms of the chosen people? Who knows? I just can tell you that in my faith, more importantly than what God intends is what we do. Where are we, right? The first question that God says to mankind in Genesis, when God, Adam hides from God, and God says, Ayeka, where are you, right? We sometimes often, today, specifically after the Holocaust, we say, where's God? Where was God on 10/7? Where was God? The answer is, where were you? Ayeka, where are you? Step up. You want to ask where God is in bad times? Thank God when you wake up in the morning and open your eyes. Be consistent. Don't be a hypocrite. Where are you? Not where is God? So a follow-up question to that is, Okay, well, the Jews need to step up, but can someone else step up? Can another nation step up and take that torch and say, we're going to continue to be the messenger of morality? Jews, you did your job, step aside. Again, can't answer you from God's perspective. I can only say we welcome that. Please step up, join us, stand by our side, support our morality, support what we've done for the world, support us in our light unto the nations, give us more light. Like, that's not something we oppose to. That's on the contrary, bring it. Unfortunately, though, we see throughout history, if we take a macro view, not, today, because the Christian world today, obviously I'm generalizing, we're talking about billions of people, but many of them support Israel. And obviously the evangelical world support Israel. Unfortunately, again, historically, the Christians have been really, really bad to the Jews, maybe even worse than the Muslims, probably worse than the Muslims. And I don't need to talk to you about radical Islamic ideology today. So unfortunately, the nations have not stepped up. That's just a historical fact. They have not. We welcome them too, but I don't think that we will ever get rid of the torch. In fact, I like the analogy of that, just popped into my head. One of the beautiful things, the beautiful concepts of fire, right? Usually when I give someone something, if I take money out of my pocket and I give it to you, I lost that money. It's gone. I don't have it in my pocket. I gave it to you. Not so with fire, right? If I give you fire, I don't lose my fire. My fire doesn't diminish. It just creates more fire in the world. And I have to say, from a business perspective, not for now, but that's my entire business philosophy is you give to others, you don't lose anything. You facilitate more fire, more goodness. So yeah, we can give our torch to someone else and our torch will remain and we will maintain our light, but we will create more light in the world by handing the torch to someone else and letting them, illuminate our light even further. And I would say amplify our light. So I have no problem with that. That doesn't scare me. If you're asking me if the Jewish people and our theology, our religion, our heritage, our tradition will disappear, I don't believe that will ever happen. I think we're more of a light unto the nations today than we've ever been. And that light is only getting brighter despite all the regional challenges, despite the existential war. The Jewish people continue to excel, continue to flourish. Again, Passover is coming up. There's the most unintuitive verse in the entire Torah. When the Torah talks about the situation in Egypt, it literally says in the Torah, not the commentary, in the Torah, the more the Egyptians persecuted the Jews, you would think the more the Jews were persecuted and the more they were, pushed down. That's not what the Torah says. The more the Egyptians persecuted the Jews, the Jews multiplied and flourished, which is counterintuitive. That doesn't make any sense. The answer is that's our story. That continues to be our story in tech today. We see all the records being broken. So the Jewish light onto the nations is brighter than ever. But please, nations, please step up. Let me give you some fire. Carry the torch forward. Continue to bring morality to a highly immoral and dark world. Western civilization is just getting darker by the day. We need more light. So step up and join us.